today. If it's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower. I'm so excited and honored to have two of my favorite LinkedIn connections, but more importantly, really quality people that this is an opportunity to get to know and we can all learn together. And this is all about the audience. You know, it's what we can do for you in the time you're giving us today to get to justify the continuation of knowledge share that we're developed. So, like I say, the words courage, chat's open. I want to first introduce to you Kofi, who you must know because he's everywhere, just like Brian, and really making some big statements that are so valuable and so many people are benefiting from. And I think that's one of the keys to bringing the three of us together is really sharing what we've learned to help you kind of accelerate your learning curve. So Kofi, why don't you bring everybody a little bit up to date and what's your thoughts on courage? Brian, actually, we got some people going, but go ahead, Kofi.
Thank you very much, Dan, Brian. Good to have you all on here. Real quick, my name is Kofi Duhaji. I help first-time authors put their books on the shelves and become published authors. The topic of today, or the word of today, courage, makes me think of intentionality. It's a deliberate act to go against your internal barriers, if or let's call them mental preservations, knowing that I'm feeling fearful in this situation, but deciding to take action anyway. I think that's what it boils down to me when we mention courage.
Well, that's important, and it'd be really cool to have the audience share what they believe courage means to them and how they use it. And I think every word we come up with here has different context, application, uh, how you pronounce it, how you share it. So, Brian, you've shown a lot of courage in your life. I know you've made some major changes along the way and continue to grow with them. So, what have you learned from courage?
Yeah, good to be here, Don and Kofi. Good to see you. For me, courage is very similar to confidence in the sense that what I really think it is having a ability or the willingness to fail in front of other people, perhaps those that you don't know, those that you do know. And so for me, it's about having consistent, driven daily purpose. And that in and of itself will create sort of momentum. And that momentum is what gives you the courage to keep moving forward through any sort of, limiting belief in your mind, anything that keeps you stuck. It's that internal work and that internal ability to move past that is what really defines, courage or confidence to me.
Yeah, well, I think what I'm thinking of when you were just saying what you said is there's other words that really support courage, like persistency, like tenacity, where courage is not just a feeling, but it's an action, that you put in place.
Yeah.
And it's a reflection of, maybe a sense of urgency, but also I think courage relates to a sense of pride, right? Because you have to do things that are stretching you, like Kofi said. There was a saying I heard that the uh, the cave you fear the most holds the treasure you need the most.
Yeah.
And if you can approach what you fear, you find out it's blocking you from something you really need. And I think fear can be temporary or it can be permanent. It becomes temporary when you overcome it, when you face it, because then it's not fear, it's reality. Then you have a known. I think the fear is the mystery, you know. So, Brian, you want to take, well, let's first recognize all these beautiful people. Without them, no show today. Um, we've got Aaron is here. Roxanne's here. Andrea, who does every Tuesdays here. So great to have you. Kelly does every Thursday and really is the lifeblood of this show. I mean, just really just phenomenally important to the messaging we do and the connections we make. And that's the key is this is a team, and people have to have courage not only to join the team, but play on the team. So Paul's here every day. Happy Saturday. 3 of my favorite connections, talking about my superpower. Grateful to be here, learn. Dr. Constance, so I can't wait to have another show with. Good morning, brothers. So great to have you, Doctor. Paul, everybody's saying hello to everybody, and they're beautiful. Dennis is always here with his rhymes, showing up and learning works. I think we caught up. Kofi, what do you think about the reaction we're getting today?
It's amazing, Don. It's so amazing. The community that we're building on LinkedIn is just inspiring and encouraging that we can take something as a social media platform and build a real community that is up for change and making change.
Well,
It's a blessing.
I can see the enthusiasm and optimism when you say that. And, I think it takes courage to get in front of yourself, to stretch and to maybe create a little fear in yourself because you stretched a little bit more than you thought. But, you always tend to get there somehow. Brian, to Kofi's point, these people are everywhere because to me, they're learners and they're teachers and they're more importantly, collaborators, who want to get more information faster from people they trust and know, as opposed to being in the crowd and just getting louder or whatever, salesy to get people's attention versus having really quality conversations. Because the deeper you go on LinkedIn, the richer it can get in all kinds of ways. Brian, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. If you don't like the answers that you're getting in life, then typically you have to ask the deeper questions. And so it is true that if you want to climb higher, you definitely have to go deeper, whether that's within yourself, whether it's with relationships, whatever it really is. But I think for me, the beauty of LinkedIn is that there's not just people out there giving information or giving knowledge. There's people that have experience and they're giving you wisdom, which really the difference is you've taken that knowledge or you've taken that information and you've actually put it into action. And those ideas or those theories that you had, in your mind, when they become reality, then that's when you really can start impacting other people, is when you start sharing your wisdom. And so what I think is incredible about the community here is that you don't just have a bunch of people who have knowledge or have skill sets. You have people who have actually done the things that they're trying to teach other people to do. And when you have them sharing that wisdom, that's really what creates a legacy. And that's what's so incredible about this community.
Yeah, so well said. And it's what you make it now. Everybody knows everybody well enough and knows what we've said over time to know who we are, what we want to do, what we try to do. But when is the engagement come in? When does the synergy start to kick in with people supporting each other, right? Promoting each other and getting into a discipline of exercise, because I think too many people are focused, how can I improve what I'm doing? And that's natural. But along the way, how do you budget your time for the people you want to support and you want to be supported by? I'm always a big believer in measure twice, cut once, as opposed, and then after a while, just if you got open field, just let it fly, and I think that's what people want to believe in is when they can get not only beyond where they're at, but in places they never could have believed because someone decided they had a thought, And maybe it was a crazy thought. I was just thinking a real quick story, how I got into e-commerce and it became huge. Is that one night I came home from work, my son, who was like 12, was on eBay, which had just kind of came out. And he was looking at sports stuff, shirts and whatever they had. And I had a newspaper ad, and I used to be a major newspaper player. And I just said, hey, Jonathan, take 2 items out of here, put it on eBay, and I'll split whatever we make. And I didn't know how you do it, how'd you get money, how you ship it, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, that turned into a $250 million business just from those 2 items, with someone saying, I got an ad, put it in. I could go into more detail, but it would take up too much time. But the point is only through interaction, only through connection can things like this happen. And what I do believe is LinkedIn Live is so powerful relative to what other people invest time in, that if you've got a quality message, it's going to really resonate. But more importantly, everybody can rise together. That's what's so beautiful. The audience only is the audience for as long as they want to be, right? And then they can host, co-host, share their story independently. Kofi?
Done. Yeah, Brian mentioned something that you touched on a little bit, which is we talk a lot about walking the talk, right? Walking the talk, but there is a delayed between those two. Because if you're just walking the talk in real time, there's no wisdom in that. But wisdom comes when you've walked the road, you've had your challenges, your own trials, you've made mistakes, and you learn along the way. Then you can start talking the walk, sharing that, hey, I've been able to go to the river, I was able to grab some liters of water, and now I'm back and I can talk about the journey, the road, the path down to the river, right? And all the things that Brian and yourself you've done. That's where that wisdom that is truly valuable we can share with others to improve and get save time. Ultimately, to me, time is the most valuable resource. And if I'm going to your house, Don, and I don't know how to get to your house, I have 2 options. I can keep walking, wandering around the United States until I find your house, or I can ask for direction from you or from someone who's been to your house and follow that direction to get to your house quicker than thinking to myself, oh, I'm smart, I know how to drive, I can find my way. So I think ultimately to me, it boils down to be able to have that courage to know that I can't do it all by myself, that I can also use help around me. And using help, choosing deliberately to go for help and ask for help, I think is a superpower that most people don't use out of pride or maybe ego. But ultimately, in my opinion, all those things come together when it comes to courage.
Oh, that's beautiful. And asking for help could show strength, and it could show being humble and modest, knowing that you don't know something, or knowing that you honor somebody who does know it. And it's all how you approach. Brian, how have you seen asking for help in your life translate?
Yeah, I mean, it's I definitely think that, it's all about ultimately, I think like Kofi said, in life, a lot of people, whether it's fear, whatever it is that people are worried about that is preventing them from having courage and confidence, a lot of times people will say that they don't have enough resources, but that's usually not the case. Usually it's that they aren't resourceful enough, right? So the resources are there, people just aren't resourceful. And so the two things I think in life that can make people be very resourceful, and that are the two actually biggest hacks if you want to have success in life. The first thing, number one, is you have to have a powerful mindset yourself. And that starts with you, right? Like having the ability to overcome adversity. You have to be the best self that you can be. You have to invest in yourself. And then the second biggest resource, I think, on earth, period, speaks to what we do on this show, and really speaks to Kofi's point about saving time. And that is, someone much smarter said this than me. I really like the way he said it. I watched this speech the other day with Warren Buffett, and he basically said that a powerful mind is number one. And number two is, in life, you go in the direction of the people that you surround yourself with, right? And so it's so important that you take care of yourself first, and that you yourself are in the place that you need to be. You have your why, you have all of that. But then at the end of the day, the second most important thing you can do is surround yourself with a community of people that are going in the direction that you want to go. And so that's what courage really is about to me. It's having the ability to step into who you are, and then knowing that it takes other people around you to go far, right? If you want to go fast, you go by yourself. If you want to go far, you go together.
Yeah, I think, you visualize that in so many wonderful ways, that, the game is between you and yourself every day. You determine how you play, you determine how you judge how you play, you determine how well you treat yourself, based on however you feel about what you're doing. But, if people can take time away from quality and do what's right, do what you enjoy, and keep doing it. I just looked today at my newsletters, and I didn't know how far back. I've been doing a newsletter every day now for 7 months and never realized it, because every day I do it once, and people say, how do you do this show every day? And I've been doing this for 11 months, 7 days a week. I say to myself, and that's what you have to, is some people work 8 hours in a day. I work 7 hours in a week, right? If it's an hour a day. So, I think it's all context. And, we had Johanna on the other day, and the topic was painting. And I looked at it like every day you add a stroke to your paintings, right? And it just continues to fill up and get more valuable to everybody. So, Kofi, is your definition of courage starting to adjust?
Yeah, I mean, my definition of courage, I could write 3 books out of it. It's such a diverse, just a single word, but very diverse aspects to it. Courage is also the ability to be you in front of the world, the ability to go and sit where your heart wants to sit when everyone is watching every single step you're taking. Having the courage to, like Brian said, to fail in front of the world while living a purpose driven life, and that ability to say, yes, I just fell, or I just failed, but I'm going to pick myself up, dust myself off, and I'm going to try again, regardless of who's watching or who's not watching. And tying that back to what you said, Don, is definitely the base foundational aspect of courage is action, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, without action, you just have more thought. And I think the other key to courage is employing reflection, is to really take a moment of pause and reflect on what your position is, what your situation, check all your gauges and decide how do you approach the next day. To me, it's a mountain climb that never ends.
Mhm.
Right? It's just you get to a base camp, maybe you decide here's a time to rest. I think the other aspect is celebration and happiness should be part of courage. I mean, that should be one of the goals, that what you're doing is going to create a better situation for somebody, hopefully yourself and others. But, when you look at yourself on a mountain climb, you would, just to Brian's point, like to be with a guide or guides, right? It's so much better if someone's been up and down 8, 9 times and they know what to do, what not to do. And not only that, you feel better when you're together with people who you need. You're not honoring somebody by saying, I'll be part of your thing. They're honoring you by inviting you in. And what do you have to provide? That's why stories go so far. And once everybody knows your story, it's like, and they accept you, what do you got to show today? Who's coming to the picnic with something? So let me just go through. We've got Aaron here today, Dr. Constance, amazing people. Olu, who I've gotten to know and am talking to on a regular basis, is here. Wonderful gentleman. Nicole wrote her book, amazing story, had her on. Stephen is here. Cynthia, so good to have you. Let me see if we have some comments here. A lot of gracious salutations. Okay, and here we have hope you feel stronger. It's really nice when a community just blesses each other, says hello to each other, says, I'm sorry for being 5 minutes late. Paul says Warren Buffett had a powerful quote, don't do the barking for your dog. Sometimes we have to have the courage and trust to let others make their own choices. Sometimes you can't win every day. It's just not possible. No matter how good you are, you strike out, but that's the game. And you have to be, I think to Brian's point, ready to play. You got to start the day with the best you can put together, knowing that you're dealing with outside situations, and that's, I think, the discipline is separating yourself from other things when you're focused on something. And I think courage is staying focused, making continuous impact. And it's like muscle building. Once you start feeling it, once you start seeing it, you start believing it. And then it becomes just a fact. It's a matter of time. And I never enter something without believing I'm going to not only master it, but pass it on better than I found it. That's a great saying. Leave the log pile bigger than you found it every day. Give more than you take. Make that a practice because you'll get stronger. People will get attracted to you. They say faith is the belief in the invisible, and people sometimes have to have that faith. So, Kofi?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on Brian's point about a strong mindset again. And I'm going to build an analogy between having a strong mindset and a computer, right? If you take the best built computer on this planet, what makes it the best actually is the operation, the system that is operating the programs and everything on the computer. Just like a human being, our mindset, as a human being, our mindset is what is going to enable any and every action we take. Because if you think that it's impossible to find diamond in the dirt, you're not even going to try to look for it. And your chances of finding diamond are zero because your mindset doesn't believe that diamond actually comes from the dirt, that you have to dig and find it somewhere underneath that. So I think having a strong mindset and being able to take action and understanding that the purpose is important than anything else. I think what also prevent people from being courageous sometimes is worrying too much about who gets the credit. And that goes back to asking for help. If your goal is to get to a very specific purpose, it doesn't matter how it happens. It doesn't matter who held your hand to the purpose. Because at the end of the day, are you looking for credit, or are you looking to build a stronger and a healthier community? If we are looking to make our community strong, it doesn't matter if Brian or Don is the leader and is the person who is strong enough to get us there, right? So having the courage to know your strengths, your limitations, and own to them is also uh, having the ability to own to your strength and your weaknesses to is also a form of expression of courage.
That is terrific insight. And just to layer on to that, it's really about making things more community dependent than people dependent or person dependent. Because if what we're doing is worthwhile, it can't get any bigger than the person or persons that support it, right? If you have a community that's organic and expansive in natural ways that help people, then the word will get out faster. More people will take advantage of this because in the world today, there's so much insulation, isolation, minimalization that this can free people up. So, Brian, what do you see about the future of things like LinkedIn Live and how that could apply?
Yeah, I mean, I think that community still is, to me, so important with courage, and I think that having a platform where you can express that can really help people create that voice, which can help them with courage. It's I think a lot of people think that courage or clarity or alignment or any of these things, right, that we talk about with mindset just sort of come to you. And really, for me, what it all goes back to, and just building off of what Kofi said and what I had said earlier, is action. And an example I like to use is, if you are trying to drive through the fog or you're trying to drive through a snowstorm, and you need to drive 20 feet, but you only have 10 feet of visibility, the only way to make it 20 feet is to first drive 10 feet, and then you can see another 10 feet. So now you can drive 20. And so the only way that you can gain that clarity is by taking action. And one of the ways you can do that is by working with your community, by working with yourself, by sharing your voice, and by stepping out into the world and having that courage. Because if you take that action, that'll help you create clarity. It'll help you create alignment.
Well, and I think too, the beauty of the audience is you get instant feedback in real time with people that are focused on putting out more positive, constructive information. That I never see any criticism. I never see anybody disagreeing because, that's a judgment, and I think if you go into any discussion without judgment and you're open to learning and changing, that's the best way because now it's more collective. The other thing is I've learned about action is sometimes what you go after, when you go a third of the way in, you see a better opportunity or a different opportunity. But if you wouldn't have went after the first opportunity, you would have never identified the new opportunity. And if you grant yourself that grace to do what you do in the moment you're in with the information and the people you have, there's a saying, start with whoever you are, wherever you are, and with whatever you have. That's where you have to start, right? The first time I did a LinkedIn Live, I knew I was running around a track when nobody understands. But that's your first one, right? And if you want to have a second one, maybe a person will show up. But you got to show up every day for yourself first. If you don't show up, there is no one else. and why would you expect someone to be there if you're not going to show up? So I think this is also kind of like a workout buddy plan where you show up because people you care about are going to show up and they're going to want to see you or see how you're doing. The other thing is you're curious. If 40 people are knowledge sharing at the same time every day of the week with each other, how powerful could that be? Because you don't have time to forget what you just learned before you start learning something new. And I think that's the beauty of this. All I try to do is throw the ball in, and whoever kicks it, the game's on, and it's the audience that takes over. So, Kofi, little new way of looking at things, huh?
Yeah, little new ways pile up real quick, and with small steps, we can get to the highest mountain tops. You know, uh, I think courage is often seen as something that is only between the self and the world, but there's also an aspect of courage which is internal, which is just with the self, you and yourself and your thoughts, having the ability to make choices in yourself, within yourself, quietly, and no one even knows about it. But it takes courage to make the right decisions, because sometimes you know where the journey is leading you, but you might not have the courage to step that direction. And it's one of the aspects of courage that is over looked, in my opinion, most times, but very important because, as Brian would say, you have to look deeper if you want to go higher. And having the courage to look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, it would be nice for me to be doing this right now, but that is not what I'm cut for. Having the courage to make that decision. And I want to share a personal story here, real quick, about that. It's been 6 months where I knew where my coaching practice led me, but I didn't want to do that because back somewhere in me was this idea that no, I am more than that. But sitting down and taking the courage to look myself in the eyes and say, hey, you are lost, because I ended up defining myself by what I was doing. So having the courage to just admit to yourself that I'm doing this wrong, and asking for help, again, going back to help, for someone to help you gain clarity and tell yourself, this is where I need to go, because you know from inside the little voice said it multiple times. And oftentimes I think we know what we should do, but oftentimes we don't have the courage to do it.
Well, and I think that's 90% of it is just doing something towards it. And that's the nice thing about daily disciplines is you can do a little bit every day that's comfortable. Someone would give you a book that's 300 pages and say, can you read this in a week? And you would say, no way. But if they said, can you read a page or two a day? And within 3-4 months, you'll read the book. And maybe when you read a page or two, you might be curious and read 4 or 5 pages the next day. And it's getting started. There's plenty of people who know plenty of things that they can use to get started. And there's so many more resources than ever to learn what you don't know. You go to YouTube. That's what I do. If I want to know something, I spend about an hour, look at 12, 13 videos on whatever subject, 4 or 5 minutes. And I'm conversational. Why wouldn't I want to buy vowels to solve the puzzle? Why wouldn't if you got a big moving job, why wouldn't you bring 20 people and make a party out of it at the end versus struggle? Because I think the other element, if you're going to construct your life, is build happiness into every day. build value into every day. I mean, you get to put the pieces of the puzzle together wherever you want them. Some people produce a horror movie, some people produce a romance or a comedy every day, so I think that's so important with courage. It is, if you're the best you can be, people will treat you better for knowing, first of all, you're taken care of. Second of all, you're modeling for other people, and everything's contagious in a good or not so good way. Brian, oh, we've got Baz. I just had an opportunity to talk to him yesterday. Very interesting gentleman. Will be on Tuesday's show. That's how quick it works. Talked to somebody last night. They're on the show. So, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I think, definitely having that account. I mean, we were talking about accountability. I think that, holding yourself accountable, and really judging no one other than yourself is very important. And obviously, it's something that we all need to strive to do. But it's also really, I think, one of the most easier said than done things there is on the face of the earth. So when people talk about holding themselves accountable, I think that that's fine, and that's a good place to start. But most of the great minds in the world throughout history have had a team of advisors or a team of people, or like we talked about, a community around them. And I think that you have to have this powerful mindset yourself. But unfortunately, I think at the end of the day, you have to have people who are challenging you and who are supporting you just as much. Because if you don't, and it's not that you're looking for outside validation, right? Because we control our thoughts, which means we control the destiny of our own life. But you have to have outside people who can take you to another level, so that if you hit a plateau, right, sometimes it can be them that help you have a breakthrough. And so I think that having internal accountability, and gratitude is another thing, that is super powerful and super important. I think, we talk about happiness a lot, we talk about kindness a lot, but I really think that for me, the better word choice is gratitude. And I think that practicing gratitude with yourself and with other people is just so important, because happiness, right? Happiness is something that we control at any time. It's happiness and success are not the same thing. We think they're the same thing, but they're completely opposites. And so you can be happy at any time you want. And so for me, I think that really is what it's all about, is being grateful with yourself and grateful with others. And for me, vulnerability is just another side of the coin for courage and confidence. And so it's about having all those things together. I think that's key.
Yeah, I mean, that's where balance comes in. Being successful at one thing and failing at everything else that's important isn't success. It's actually sacrifice. I always build with what's the most important thing. And all through my career, and I had the luxury of owning my own businesses, it was always family first. That's why I went to work every day. And, when my kids were in elementary school, I took them to school every day and then went to work, and came home every night for dinner. And it was not only a good modeling, but I enjoyed it. It's not what you're doing or how well you're doing, it's who you're doing it with. Right? Doesn't matter where you live. Doesn't matter if you're just blessed, like Brian says, and there should be a time in the day. I mean, when I wake up, I'm just happy to be alive. I mean, I just think, hey, I got another ticket on the roller coaster of life here, and not everybody can expect tomorrow. At the same time, every night I go to sleep thinking, what am I so grateful for today? Who did I meet? What did I learn? And if you don't recount what's important to you, how's it going to ever be important to you? I mean, people are stepping over dollars to pick up pennies all the time, and they don't even see it. So Kelly says, must know Baz, wonderful to have you in the community. I cannot connect with you without an email. May I trouble you? Kelly is so on top of things, and so gracious and welcoming all these new people. I knew and now live with gratitude and within gratitude. It's been a life changer. It is, when you can count your blessings and when you can look down as well as up. And too many people, once they get somewhere, they keep looking up instead of where they came from or who's still down there, who deserves to be coming up too. There's a saying, it's lonely at the top, and you don't want to be in that position where you finally get everything you want and you find out you're the only one there to celebrate. No one came with you or you didn't take somebody. And why not? If you got an empty bus, fill the seats. It's the same time, trouble, and maybe gas. Brian, what's your thoughts? Or is it Kofi? I
No, Brian, you
Brian,
got it.
okay, good to know. Brian,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's true. I mean, I think that there's really no better thing that you can do for yourself or for other people, right, than reaching down and lifting someone up. And I mean, in life, as we go through life, there's a saying that you pass the same people on the way up as you do on the way down. And so I think that, having the courage, having the ability, having the wisdom to remember that and to know, that supporting other people, helping other people is ultimately going to come back to you full circle. And so I just think that, again, that's something that speaks to the community here. And just the strength in numbers is just something that is often overlooked, but shouldn't be.
yeah, and again, it's your imagination, it's your creativity. So many people feel suppressed where they work, right? Because of policies or they need authorization or whatever it is, a lot of that stuff. When you don't have to deal with it and you can wake up every day and say, what do I want to say to everybody in my network? That's a blessing to have all these people who invest the time that could have been spending it somewhere else with someone else doing something else, and they continue to say, this is a better use of my time today. Because you can never get good enough, you can never get too good, let's just say that. Because tomorrow the world's going to change again. Everything's going to be dynamic. And I think too many people are still lost in the year plan or the 5-year plan instead of, hey, let's take care of tomorrow as best we can. And then we'll, because there's a saying, tomorrow never comes, right? You're always in today. And if you can work on today, and during my greatest challenges, and I've been in situations where everybody was screaming, get out. There's nothing, there's no hope, you know? And something just said, I bought a ticket, I got to see the end. I just got to, even if you're right, I'm not the guy locking the door. And every day was pulling through. And before you know it, you get over the hump and everything opens up, you know? And it's a test. It's not a judgment. Kofi?
Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey, and the juice is in the journey, like I like to say it. No matter how bright the prize is, if you keep your eyes, this is being built up on what you said, Don, about having a 10 years plan, a 5 years plan, and it's good to have a plan. It's good to have a destination you have in mind, to have it as a compass. But if you only solely focus on that prize, there's gonna be little ditches right in front of your nose that gonna are gonna break your ankle, and you won't be able to get you to the final prize. So it's good to have a plan, have a big picture, but how I do it is use that as a compass. But if you lose sight of your immediate surrounding moving forward, you'll step in a ditch that is not shouldn't be what would uh, something that would be a destruction to your goals, your journey. But if you're too focused on the prize and you forget the journey itself, then you might not be fortunate enough as if you pay attention to just the daily and be in the moment. And going back to gratitude, I think when you count your blessings and when you find something to be grateful for, there's always something else behind it to look forward to. And gratitude multiplies everything when it comes to whether it's tangible or non-tangible. Courage, being grateful, practicing gratitude can actually help increase your courage in face of adversity.
Yeah, and I think that's so valuable to so many people to know they have the courage inside of them that's waiting to be applied. Because here's what I know for sure. Whatever you did yesterday, you could do again tomorrow. So taking a day in between and say, I'm going to be courageous and do something I haven't ever done, or I always wanted to do, or I know how to do it, I should do it, I'm putting off doing it, And every time, there was a book called, I think it was the 5 second book. And the premise was if something comes into your head within 5 seconds, you need to take action on it or you won't. Right. So if you see a book's on the floor and it says I should pick it up, but I gotta go somewhere, and you don't pick it up, you're gonna think about that book not picking it up. When you come home, it's gonna be sitting there waiting to be picked up. So it's really being aware, taking action, getting it through. One thing I prided myself when I had my companies is I always left with a clean desk. I never had something left over. I mean, I might have decided I'm not going to work with this, or I might have handed it over to somebody, but I wanted to start the day without yesterday's stuff coming into it and feeling good about it, and I think that's part of courage, is kind of a definition of integrity is what you do when no one sees what you're doing, right? That's courageous. When no one's going to know, when you could do whatever you want. But when you're doing things, and I had a CFO who was a great guy and I learned so much from. And he said, how do you ever plan for the worst anyways? What could a plan like that look like? If you get hit by a bus tomorrow, what's your plan? And whatever it is, it's going to be when it happens anyway. So if you can look at yourself as a work in progress, and I always say either you're learning or you're earning, right? Because failure is feedback. Every time you fail, you should learn something and grow from it. Brian?
Yeah, it makes me think of Jim Rohn. He said that if you work hard at your job, you'll make a living, and if you work hard on yourself, you'll make a fortune. You know what I mean? And so being able to reflect and being able to have courage, being able to see, I think some of the most important things that we've said in the last few minutes is talking about the present, and the moment that we're in now, because really honestly, you know, the, you know, it's just so important to be in the moment, right? Because so many times we're thinking about, yesterday. We're worried about these accumulated yesterdays. We're worried about these fearful tomorrows. We're not living in the present moment. And I think that, it's so important to be able to be present in the moment, because there's so much that you can't control outside of that. And so really being able to lean into that, is so important. And it's like, today, is the tomorrow that you worried about yesterday, right? And so if you spend all of your life thinking about, what am I going to do about this, or how do I fix that? I think that it really sucks your courage. It sucks your energy. It sucks all of that power that you have out, by not being present and living in that moment, like Kofi was talking about too. It's good to have, I don't really look at things as goals. I look at them as destinations, like Kofi said, because with a destination, maybe you arrive an hour late or a week late, or maybe you get there a few minutes early, right? But if you have things that are so concrete, then it makes it difficult for you to see the little things. And so I think the more that, we can be present in the moment, that is really where you find courage, and that starts with just taking action.
Yeah, well, that's so valuable. I hope everybody is taking some takeaways today, and applying them later. Here's Paul's question for Kofi. I know your story and it's filled with courage and resilience. What's been the scariest moment in your life that courage helped you overcome?
Mm, that's a good question. I think what comes to mind immediately is when my wife and I we decided to leave Togo for the United States. I'm big on community, and everywhere I go, I build communities. So leaving Togo to get on this journey to the United States, one, there was the language barrier. I'm still learning English to this day, as you can tell. You won't be able to tell when it's on paper because I have time to look it up and take time to switch words around. But when it's live, it's still challenging to me. So leaving the community that we built behind in Togo, I was a civil engineer running my own business for about 8 years when we left. So it was one of the most scariest moments in my life for sure, to walk away from all the known, all the safety nets, all the comfort zones to a brand new environment where we could barely speak the language. So I was worried about community. And funny enough, Brian said that today's the tomorrow that you worried about yesterday, right? And here I am, 7 years later, having one of the most amazing community. Uh, last, I think 2 weeks ago, I just showed up at Brian's house and called him to come and open the gate. He thought I was joking, right? So that's also to say that all my worries when I was making that decision to move to United States were just pointless. And I use that analogy to myself when I'm worrying about something that is pointless. Just be in the moment, because if someone showed me right now, sitting here in the community that we are building back then, I wouldn't have any worry whatsoever in me about moving away from what I knew. So I just apply that principle to everything I do. Paul, thank you for the question. And that's how I managed my worries back then.
That's great. Well, Brian, it seems like a great question. What was your scariest moment that required some courage?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I have so many because I've been in so many different industries, honestly. But I would say, whew, um, probably I think the thing that took the most courage for me, but it was a really easy decision. But it took a lifetime of wisdom to really be able to make that decision was, 5 years ago when I was at basically the pinnacle of my career. I was the youngest residency director at the time, in charge of lots of residents. I was on staff at Georgetown University Medical Center and just basically living my dream and everything that I had studied for. And up until my life, it was sort of the pinnacle of my career. And then when my dad passed away, deciding to walk away from my career and come back home to Texas to take over the family business that my parents had started, without really any high school degree, and to take over that company and run that business to help my mom at a time where she needed it more than I needed to be doing what I was doing, took more courage than anything I'd ever done in my life up until that point.
Now that's amazing. And look at both Kofi and Brian, what the result was, right? If someone would have discouraged them or encouraged them not to do something, what would that have meant? Because you always know what you did sometimes, but you never know what you could have done.
Yeah.
right? I met, like I say, a gentleman over dinner who became a partner of mine for 12 years and turned out to be a billionaire. And it would have never happened if it wasn't that uh, meeting that he asked me if I was going to eat my cheesecake, right? That's as simple as it was. And that started a conversation. And fortunately, I gave him my cheesecake gracefully because all I would have had to say is, no, I'm hungry, or hey, I haven't got to it yet. And I would have never known. So, and we need to kind of close it up. But to Kofi's point, there's a fable that goes back to personal development, like to the 1900s, and it's called The Acre of Diamonds, right? And without getting into a lot of detail, it's a farmer always dreamed to be a diamond hunter, and couldn't wait to sell his property to get the money to travel the world. Anyways, took the money, traveled the world, came back broke, never found it. The guy who bought his farm was digging for water and went down a couple feet deeper and found the biggest diamond acre there was. And really, what it says is you're already sitting on your acre of diamonds. You just have to open it up, open yourself up, and be flexible. You know, I believe I was reading something the other day, and it said the best quality people can acquire is patience. Because if you're patient and courageous, I think too many people are looking at superheroes when they think of courage. Someone jumps off a building, slays a dragon. I mean, it's dramatic, and the courage sometimes is to do the little thing every day you need to do for somebody. There might be a person that needs your touch, and that's worth whatever, 5, 10 minutes. And don't you see, if you're so grateful for the blessings and so proud of the blessings you provide, right? Between pride and gratitude, it doesn't take a lot of courage anymore. Courage is to get you beyond something. Pride, gratitude is to continue on your path and do it humbly. Because I know, Brian, what he said about meeting the same people on the way down as you meet on the way up. And I'll tell you one thing about being in challenging situations. The people you think will be your best friends won't. And the people you don't even know exist will. And that's just the way it tends to work out, and that's the beauty of it. Nobody wants to know the results. It takes away the fun of the journey. And I think
Absolutely.
to Kofi's point, the prize is the journey. It's not the other way around, because if you wait for the prize, you're going to win for a moment, maybe a day. And now you're back on a journey who knows when the prize is going to come. There's so many people that feel like a loser until they get the prize. I'd rather feel like a winner every day and one day find out I missed by a little bit and start the journey again. But again, I think in closing, or we need to get final thoughts, it's how you treat everybody is how you're going to be treated. And I think that's givers get. There's no question, especially on LinkedIn. So, Kofi, what's your thoughts of the show and final thoughts for the audience? And by the way, Kofi has a book. I've been reading it. It's fantastic. And Kofi's trying to encourage more authors and working with them. So, that's definitely something to keep in mind. Kofi?
Thank you very much for the shout out to my book, Don. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the time here spent with you and Brian, are both some of my favorite people in the community that keeps me challenged and keeps me growing. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Life is short, our time is precious. You all taking your time to spend some with us on this Saturday morning means a lot, and I truly appreciate it. Looking forward to getting to know the new faces in the comment. And yeah, uh, if anything that I can leave y'all with is this: there's a lot to be grateful for, but just like a light in your room, You have to be willing to turn it off to use it. Just because you have it doesn't make it useful. You have to use it to make it useful. That's all.
Perfect. Brian?
Yeah, so thanks again, Don, for having me on. It's always a pleasure. And Kofi's a close friend of mine, so having him here was, just great to see him. If you guys are interested in working with me, I do one-on-one performance coaching to help you guys get unstuck and overcome those limiting beliefs. You can head to my LinkedIn profile and book a free session. But it's just incredible. We can't do any of this without what Don does, the community builds, the communities that we all build here. I think it's one of those things that it's just so important to have service to others. And that to me is what legacy really is about. And so, if I could leave you guys, with anything in closing, it's to focus on the eulogy virtues, not your resume virtues, right? It's what people will say about you when you're gone. It's the wisdom that you leave behind that other people pass on after you're long gone. It's not about what was in your bank account. It's sort of like Mark Twain said, that you want to live a life that's so fulfilling in service to other people that when you're gone, even the undertaker will be sorry to see you go. So live a life of service. Don't be worried about how much money you leave behind. Be worried about how many people you impact and the people that they can impact.
I love both of what you finished with. And I always share, if you can't, can we? And I think that's the beauty of community that's supportive, because it might be a big hurdle for you, but it might be a little nothing for someone to offer it to you. And most of the time is awareness, understanding, and knowing someone's there. I think loneliness doesn't help courage, so get with people, reach out, be courageous. There's so many people here. If you're not connected with them, at least go to their profile, because you'll be doing yourself such a valuable service. If I was starting LinkedIn today, I would take the 50, 60 names here, and that would be my community. And I wouldn't do any outreach before I tried to work with everybody and see what you can do here. So with that, rest up. In 23 hours, let me tell you who we've got tomorrow. We've got Sarah tomorrow with Kelly. Sarah Dawkins is unbelievable. Leslie is here. Leslie Flowers is here Monday. Andrea and I believe it's Baz will be here Tuesday, and it just gets better. If anybody out there wants to do a duet with someone who they're harmonious with and bring value, I'm always looking to bring more exposure to more people. We can shine the light on each other and still have it shining us even brighter. So take care. Love you all. God bless. And we'll talk tomorrow. Bye for now.